All right, let's go ahead and get started. It's the top of the hour. Welcome to everyone watching live and those who will be watching the recording. We appreciate your support and your attention. So a few general comments before we get started here. We're heading into week 6. Just really want to put a big reminder out there regarding focus. You know, we're getting to the part of the season where maybe we're starting to feel really pretty good about ourselves and about our crew. And in a way, that's good. But what we can't do is we can't take things for granted. We got to stick with the preparation. We got to stick with what got us to this particular point where things are going well. We need to focus on mechanics. You know, mechanics put us where we need to be to make good decisions. When we're not where we need to be, it's tough. And our accuracy on play calling goes way, way down when we're not in the proper position. We got to concentrate, you know. Um, as human beings, we're going to be distracted from time to time, whether it's a firecracker that goes off behind the bleachers or whatever happens to be. We got to get back to the moment. We got to get back to our pre-snap routine. We got to get back to that communication internally within the crew. Whether you have O2O and you're doing it by voice, we need to stay engaged. These are all controllable factors. We can't control how that ball is going to flop, whether it's going to flop left, whether it's going to flop out of bounds, but we can control these other things that are within our mechanism to handle individually and as a crew. So let's make sure that we do that. You know, the games are going to get tougher to work. Teams are beginning to separate themselves. There are teams that are still undefeated that have big goals, and everyone's looking to knock them off. And we may think that we've got a game between an undefeated team that's ranked and a team that maybe is 2-3. And we're just thinking that the undefeated team is going to come in and win easily. We can't prejudge anything. We got to be prepared. We got to work the game beginning to end and make sure that however it turns out, that the players decided the game on the basis of what happened. Some of the teams are getting desperate. They thought they were going to be good and they've struggled. Maybe they had a key injury. Maybe they just had some bad luck, whatever happens to be. So that factors into their play. We have other teams that they're just flat out frustrated. And we tend to be in the way of people that are frustrated. So we need to understand that. We need to anticipate that. My big boss, Bill Carollo, talks about killing them with kindness. We need to go the extra mile to make sure that we're being patient with coaches, with players, all those sorts of things, and that we always remain the adult in the room. Okay, tonight we're going to have 2 guest presenters, 2 referees, 2 people that I've known for a number of years and admire their work, and most of all them as people. They both happen to be crew chiefs, referees. I want to put a plug out there to say that you don't have to be a referee to be a guest presenter. We had Mike Gentry a week or so ago that presented. We'll take people from any position that have the intestinal fortitude to step up and talk about a play or more than one. So, but tonight we have Chuck Walters, and Chuck is going to be introduced here in just a moment or so. He's got a list of plays that have occurred in the first few rounds of game this year. And then in the middle, we're going to have Nat Gross, who's going to present a couple of clips from the Ann Arbor Huron-Dexter game. So without further ado, Chuck, thank you for presenting. Go ahead and get started.
My comment here is, and we can play through it, but the field judge needs to be deeper. He's back in the corner, but he needs to be deeper off the white. And then we're going to watch the movement by the L on this too. Okay, Greg. I just thought it was, other than the comment about the field judge being deeper here. I thought there was nice movement by the L here getting to the goal line. And his depth is really good here also.
Chuck, just a comment about the deep wings at that back pylon position. One of my COC guys showed me a clip earlier today where he literally had a pass pattern, a fade pattern that was run, and it went literally to that back corner right at the pylon. So it does happen. And what he did, he started at that back intersection of the white. And because he recognized what was coming, he actually backed up a step or two. So just like when you're at the goal line, the limit line, if you have the area clear behind the goal line, you can back straight up and get additional space.
You can play it through, and then if you back it up, we can discuss it, what I have for you. Okay, here's what I got there. I thought it was really good depth by our L here also. His movement as the play comes to him, he's back, but then he takes himself right into the action. He just stays back, better viewing angle. The spot's not going to go anywhere, but he kind of takes himself right into the action, and really, I don't think he needed to. And he spoke with me after this play and mentioned the same thing that we're talking about. But other than that, getting into the action, I thought he did a nice job with all that stuff coming right at him with the goal line threatened too.
Hey, I was going to add something to this. We're in goal line mechanics at the 4-yard line. So he's with the chains. Mechanics would be not to get back behind the play, but to go towards the goal line, cover the goal line. We got no one covering the goal line in that corner of the end zone there. We would want him deep. We would probably want the chains deeper. And when he retreats back to the offensive side, there's no one covering the goal line.
Yeah, good point.
Gary is correct on all regards there. I was wondering if someone would comment about that. This is an exception for the line of scrimmage people, because normally when we have a play coming wide, we want them to retreat into the backfield for A, their own personal safety, and B, because it will improve blocking angles. But as Gary pointed out, in this particular instance, because we have the deep wing at the back pylon, we need to have the line of scrimmage official release and go to the goal line. Now, just like we talk about having the area clear behind the goal line for the deep wing, the same thing clearly applies to the short wing. Move the chains back. The key is, like, if the line to gain is the 1, have your marker down there. But as at the very least, when it comes that way, they need to step back and get out of the way, so that, and get that person in the blue sweatshirt that seems to be straddling the goal line, maybe a photographer, get that person out of there so that we can back up as far as we need to make a ruling at the goal line. Now, in that instance, our deep wing needs to recognize the situation, probably take on some additional responsibility in terms of that point of attack in the event that there is a fouling action over there. Good pickup, Gary.
Okay, that's it for me, Gregor, unless somebody else has got something to add. Good stuff, Gary.
Yeah, thanks, Chuck.
Should be play 11, I believe. Yep. What I had there was the field judge needs to be deeper. If that ball bounces the other direction, he's going to be way too close. And full disclosure on this first time this guy's ever been a deep wing. So, and overall, I thought he did a really good job in this game. But it's just something that jumped out at me when I watched it. Okay, Gregor. Okay, what I had there was kind of like Rich is always talking about on free kicks. It's onside until it isn't. Kicking plays, I always treat them like they're screwed up until they're not. And this is just a simple free kick. The receiver catches it, but he slips down. The L does a nice job of getting up here, getting the spot, and then as you can see about the 40-yard line, there's some action there, and off the penalty report, the back judge got a hold here and stayed with the action. And in my opinion, I don't think there was enough to follow this stuff afterwards. Just wasn't big enough, in my opinion. A good pickup by the back judge. He could have been ball watching, daydreaming, and that hold doesn't get called.
Yeah,
Okay,
let me
that's all I
comment
got.
on, let me comment on the action, the dead ball action at the
Yep.
40. It really does not do us any good to have offsetting UNRs. Now, if they give you no choice, okay, then you have to do it. Here, just get to them, clean it up, let them know that, enough's enough. Stop, play nice in the sandbox. The last guy kind of embellishes that. Just get in there and get them cleaned out and move on.
Hey, Rich, I just gonna add one more thing, if I may.
Please.
Uh, from the goal line, when the official who's running up the sideline at the top of the screen, when he sees the receiver fall down, he waits until he gets within 5 yards to start killing the clock. I think I would have liked, at least for my guys, to start killing the clock right away once he falls down right there, instead of waiting till right about there. Yeah, just it's a minor point, but in case the clock operator was winding it once the receiver caught it, we might have lost 5-6 seconds off the clock on that.
Well, it's important at any time, and that's one of the things that we want to condition the clock operator to go off of our signals. So not only winding, but also stopping the clock. Here, time is not of the essence, but later in the game it may be. So it's just good football for us to manage the game throughout consistently.
Okay, Gregor, I'm good. Okay, what I had here was the dreaded kicking situation on a poor kick. Some crazy things could have happened here. Any one of these officials could have just totally screwed it up and thinking whatever and had a whistle here, but they didn't. But my comment was here, the H was just slow to get in reverse mode thinking here and just ball watching basically. The R is where he needs to be until the play ends. That's just what I had on that one.
On a positive side, I like how he held the line of scrimmage on this short, potentially crazy play. It had a potential to bounce back behind the line of scrimmage. But like you said, Chuck, once it got caught by the receiving team, then and at the very end he did take off. But
Yeah.
I love how he held the line to make sure that the ball was crossed the line of scrimmage. And I'm sure the other official held the line as well. So that looked really good.
Yeah. Yeah. Crazy kicking situations. Okay, Gregor, that's all I got there. Okay, in defense of this deep wing, this is his first varsity game ever and first time ever working as a deep wing. And as you can see, he's got a run around the coach upfield, and the H is slow to get in reverse again. And he looks like he contacts a coach. I don't see a flag on this. It should have been there. Yeah, the first one there. Should have been something there. And then again, the contact with the coach as the H tries to get upfield.
This is an opportunity for us to be preventative.
Yep.
We should not start this play with the coach on the sideline. Before we get to the snap, as we're retreating to our punt position, we should be clearing the white area on both sides of the field. So unless this guy walked up to this spot at the last moment, we should have gotten him out of there. There isn't anything that's going to be positive coming out of this. I think there's a question in the chat in terms of what to do with it. It's really dealer's choice. At the bare minimum, it should be a sideline warning. If you've not had previous problems with this bench, then the warning is fine. You need to, when we don't address it in any regard, we can't expect that we're going to get any positive change in terms of what we need. So at least with a warning, we've had a flag, we've had an announcement. The person that wasn't where he was supposed to be now knows that he is the person that the announcement and the flag and everything else is about. So take care of it as early in the game as you possibly can.
You're talking about the flag with a sideline warning, not just because the one said is a warning, okay? And I guess I take it as, is it just okay to tell him, hey, get out of there? Or you're talking about a flag with no penalty basically for the warning, correct?
Correct. In that situation, that it's like a tackle that's lined up 2 yards behind the line of scrimmage. We've blown right past the unofficial warning part. We're going right to the whip. We're going right to the flag. We can't just simply give an unofficial warning. Throw the flag, issue a sideline warning, put them on notice.
What I had here was, other than this early movement, if the deep wing gets to the spot he ends up in, other than that, I thought he did a nice job here slow, mechanics, whistle. Again, this is a first time deep wing guy working here. What I had here was, in my opinion, a bang bang here. I don't have DPI. A good pickup by the blindside block by the U, and I think the H gets it too. Again, it'd been nice to see him a little deeper downfield. Deep wing is a little slow to react in the reverse mechanics, but they get the big one, the big safety foul here.
And he also continues to give ground instead of checking up quickly. Sometimes we have this tendency at the end of a play or when we throw a flag that we want to come to a stop. And you can see even after he's thrown the flag, he's continued to retreat, which aids in the dead ball officiating component of it.
Yeah. And it looks like he's coming back to get the spot too. And again, that's not his spot there in this mechanic.
Now, in this,
I'm sorry, Rich, go ahead.
no, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, I just thought that last play, it was a great job from the short wing from the get-go. And this particular play at the end of the play, I think after he realized his deep wing wasn't going to take the spot, he just did what he had to do in that situation. And you know, when you have a new deep wing, and I know I have some new deep wings, I get it. You know, we work through it. It's a learning process, and they'll learn on a change of possession. The deep wings will learn they'll need to take the spot on a play like this. But great job by the short wing, amazing.
My thought on that was that maybe the short wing had paused coming up because of the carnage that is on the ground there to ensure that they separate. Plus, you've got a player that's injured. It may be that he was somewhat delayed coming up just to make sure that we had a clean break of the opponents.
Of course, I was going to make the comment. I think he had to reload his hand to throw the flag as far as he had to throw it. He had to get momentum wound
Could
up.
be.
Yeah, and I'm sure there was a lot of that, Gary, coaching, so to speak, on the sideline in that game too, between those two. So,
But he did a great job on that play.
yeah, kudos to the guy doing this. I know him; he's a good official, and he had his hands full. That's for sure. Okay, what I had here was obviously you can see all the action out of bounds. We do get two officials in there. I think it would have been a little nicer to see the deep wing get up there a little quicker. Maybe the U doesn't have to come in there quite as far and run past players. Maybe he might stay back a little bit. As you can see towards the end before it cuts off, he's coming in there. Good job by the R getting in there. And the U, as you can see, is, I think if he stays back, that might help too, you know, if this escalates off the field.
A point here, when the short wing at the top of the screen sees that his counterpart has moved off of the dead ball out of bounds spot, that's got to be an automatic cross field mechanic situation, okay? Because who knows what's going to happen over in the bench here, how long we're going to be over there, so on and so forth. But at the end of the play, we need to have a reference spot. So the short wing on this side justifiably went in to help clean up what was going on over there. So we need to have whichever short wing it is at the top of the screen, make note of where we're going to put the yard line when we come back into play, which looks like it's about the 43. I agree that we need to get our deep wing in that bench area sooner, and needs to be looking where we have officials already and where we have opponents. Because if we have multiple people, like for instance, you can see that we're getting more of the white shirts coming towards the home bench. So we can't have everyone out of bounds and then miss something up near the sideline. We've got to deploy our resources accordingly. So just out of curiosity, who do we foul here?
I don't, Chris Van Epps is on this. Chris, what'd you have there? I don't remember off the penalty report. I wasn't on this game.
We ended up having offsetting penalties because Dan had a different guy than I had. I originally had Jackson and he had an Ipsy.
Here, we want to try to get who caused the ruckus to begin with. And it appears to me that this problem occurred because the Jackson player did not stop when he got his opponent out of bounds.
Yeah, that's who I had first, was the Jackson. And then Dan came in and got the Ipsy because, yeah, this was quite a tense game.
Right. So try to penalize the team that really is responsible for the problem.
Right.
Now, if the other team doesn't give you any choice, okay, then go with multiple fouls. And in many cases, that'll be an offset. Of course, we know that as long as we have at least one dead ball foul on both teams, everything's going to offset. It's not like if you have 2 on one and 1 on the other that you're going to go with the difference being 15. They all offset.
Okay, what I had here was another dreaded kicking play. Like I said earlier, like Rich says, it's free kicks are onside until they're not, and I think kicking situations are screwed up until they're not. And here's what we got. Art does a nice job of retreating, getting back to the most important line on the field, the goal line at that point. It's covered. And well, I guess what I had on this play was nothing really huge. It was just the movement at the end of the positioning to start the play, and the movement by the officials at the end of the play. Nothing spectacular happened here, but I just thought it was nice movement by everyone involved there.
When you have teams like Edwardsburg, you've got to be aware that there are going to be times where you really don't know where the ball is, and you've just really got to focus on the fact that one whistle is plenty. In fact, at the end of a play, if we haven't really found the ball, it would be just fine if we didn't have a whistle at all. Someone can put a hand up, which designates the end of the play, but sometimes we feel obligated to blow a whistle because we think it signals the end of the play or creates that dead ball, and actually by rule, the play becomes dead rather than because of a whistle.
Yeah, there was quite a few plays exactly like that too. They do a really good job of hiding the ball. They're really good with. And what I had here was, again, nothing spectacular, but just four guys doing their jobs, giving up the spot at the, to his spot, the short wing spot to the two, and then the deep wing comes in and takes the spot because of the progress. Again, nothing spectacular here, but just these guys did just a really nice job on both sides of the ball. We beat each other up to death on a lot of this stuff, and we should, because we all want to get better. But I think at times guys need a little pat on the back for doing their job, and that's what this clip is about. Again, nothing spectacular, but just four guys doing their job, and actually all the guys here.
Well, this is about communication between the short wing and the deep wing. So when the deep wing sees this play, he's going to be the captain on this for the most part. He's going to recognize that this ball is at the 2 or inside. And if it is, whatever your prearranged signal is going to be, or your voice call is going to be, me, I've got it, whatever you come up with, but it's got to be clear that this is my spot. And what that means is that the short wing is going to stop at about the 5. Now, the only thing that would make this even better, the short wing at the bottom of the screen, instead of looking down at the deep wing, look back into the field as you have players that are moving towards the new dead ball spot. Okay. You have opposite jersey colors there. We might pick something up because you're looking back into the field. All right, let's progress now. Let's go to Huron Dexter. Gregor, we're going to have Nat Gross talk about a couple of plays in just a minute, but I'm going to highlight a couple of other situations that aren't on Nat's short list here. First one is 29, and what you need to concentrate on are the wide receivers at the top of the screen, particularly the defensive backs. Now, look at the contact that's created, and what we need to do as deeps or anywhere on the field is to evaluate contact and assume that it's legal until it's not. And in this particular case, while they're very, very physical, they don't grab and restrict. They don't hook and turn. They just simply get into their opponent physically before the ball is in the air. And you may have sidelines, you may have spectators, you may even have players that are saying, he's holding me or he's fouling me or whatever. But in reality, none of that happened here. You just had strong physical athletes that took on these people. And at least for that particular play, they won, they dominated. So make sure that if you're considering a foul, that you can put this into one of the categories: hook and turn, grab and restrict. And in this case, none of that applies. All right, Gregor, let's go down to number 85. Now, in our pre-snap routine, we need to consider time, score, and situation here. We're down near the goal line. This is near the end of the first half. We're running short on time, so we got to be thinking down, distance, situation. So we should be thinking this should be an OPI alert. Now, in this particular case, this receiver is freed up. So right away you're thinking, oh my goodness, how did he get to that spot? But if you watch it back, number one just runs his route, and this defensive player initiates contact and follows him. Doesn't have anything to do with the coverage or lack thereof. You can see the defensive player was way out of position, and that's why he was open. But we need to be thinking right along with the teams, and we need to be looking for actions to make sure that they are legal and that there isn't anything that crosses the line that creates an unfair advantage. Here, just a clean play. Poor play by the defense, clean play by the offense. All right, 115. This is going to be a punt play, and we're going to miss a holding situation. It's right in the middle of the field. This is we spin this guy around. We clearly affect his balance, his speed, hold him up for probably 2 steps. This is while the ball is still in the air, okay? So we immediately took one of the flyers defending this punt out of the play. Now, it ended up not being a punt return, but we don't know that at the time this foul occurs. So since this is going to be a post-scrimmage kick foul, we really don't have to be concerned about a spot because the kick is not yet ended. So what we want to do is to get a flag out there signifying we got a foul, mentally note the approximate yard line that you're going to put it on, somewhere around the 40-yard line in the event that we later need to use it as an enforcement spot. But in this particular case, this foul is going to be enforced from the end of the kick. All right, let's go to 161. This is very late in the game. And this, as previously mentioned, this has been a very emotional situation in this game. So we need to have very, very good dead ball awareness at the end of this play. Do you see what happened there? Right at around the hash mark, bottom of the screen. Now, if we saw this and we elected to pass, okay. But what we can't do is to become ball watchers and not have awareness of things that are going on around the game as a whole. And here, you know, this could have had some real detrimental outcomes for us. It turned out to be okay, but we just have to have that sort of an awareness.
Just so you know, Rich, that was penalized by Jason as a 15-yard dead ball UNR. We penalized that.
All right, now I'm glad to know that, but this happens. That's really a good pickup on his part because he certainly has to concentrate on the end of this play to ensure that we have firm control, survive the ground, and all of that. So I'm glad we got the foul. I guess I would ask the rhetorical question, did we see just the tail end of this, or did we really see what took place overall and made our decision accordingly? And again, that's rhetorical. We don't need to get into that. All right, now, before we leave here on Dexter, this is a good time for me to bring our next presenter into the fold tonight. Nat Gross is a crew chief. He was the referee on this game. Nat, you've got, I believe, 2 plays to present tonight. So, Gregor, let's go to Nat's playlist, and the floor is yours.
All right, the first play is number 59. I'll just let Gregor throw this or see this, and then we'll talk about it. what happened there is, as the guy was crossing, the kid from Dexter, number 7, came across, and if you watch him, the head goes back, the elbow comes right up to the head, and he stands over top of him as he's walking away. We had 2 penalties on this, or not 2 penalties, 2 flags, one by, I think it was Austin, and the other one by Jason Smith. This took a little bit longer to kind of sift through, due to the fact that when this happened, we ended up calling it a target and we called it an ejection. It took us quite a bit to get through it because I don't know if the O2Os weren't working or what was going on with it at the time, but I had Austin and I had Jason come in and tell me what they had, and they both gave me the same thing as the targeting. And I asked the question, was it a blow above the shoulder blades to the head area? Was there an upward thrust? Was there a crown of the helmet? Was there an arm, elbow, hand blow to the head? And they both said yes. Now, based on this, we have to have a crew decision. It isn't just going to be those 2 guys. I need to ask everybody if they had anything different, because if somebody else says, no, it's not ejectable, then it's not going to be an ejection. But here we had all the elements of targeting, and he was ejected.
Well, this is a defenseless player. He's not had an opportunity to regain his balance, defend himself, and a blow to the head, which you have to watch closely because of the distance away from the camera from this action to really pick it up. But if you watch in the center of the field, this is a high forearm right into the headgear, maybe under the chin. And it is a dangerous situation. Now, he doesn't help himself by even standing over the player for a moment, but that's notwithstanding the foul. That cannot weigh into what we do with it in terms of disqualification or not. If anything, potentially you could have 2 fouls. You could have a foul for targeting, and then if he stood over the player in such a way that it really created a taunting situation that you were concerned about, then you could throw a second flag for a UNS. But that's what makes it disqualifying, is that forearm up into the headgear.
Well, if you watch his head goes back immediately when 7 hits him. And that's a lot of the criteria that I look at as to whether or not the blows to the head.
Now, one of the things that Jeremy has talked about in the SEMSO group is that disqualifying fouls have to be obvious. It has to be a situation where the DQ calls itself, because a year or 2 ago, we were having a lot of disqualifications and they just were not showing up as being strong enough. They were UNRs or UNSs, but it was difficult for him to defend sitting a kid in some of the situations that we had. So consequently, he said what he said. Jeremy has supported this as a disqualifying foul, just so you know.
All right, I'll just let this one play through and let you guys take a look at it. I asked, I think it was Smitty or Jake, if they had targeting. They said no. I asked them if they had spearing. They said no. I asked them if they had any kind of intentional act other than he just blew him up from behind. Well, the problem was I didn't have something to eject 54 at the time, and I still don't believe that I have anything other than UNR on 50, because as you can see, all he's doing is he's running up. Yeah, he got pushed, but he still continued to run through the kid, and then he just drills him. But he doesn't lead with his head. He doesn't spear. He doesn't do any of that stuff. So we penalized it for UNR.
Well, I would say this has got to be right on the edge. And when you have an emotional game like this, that has to be factored in as well. I see Nat's point that, you know, he isn't speared, he isn't, there's not a targeting involved here. But when you've got a defenseless player that's essentially standing there and just kind of watching, and he gets bowled over like that, it certainly is something that we need to talk about and consider as a DQ. I would agree that it doesn't necessarily call itself that it's a disqualifying foul, but it's certainly one that we ought to discuss, as we do as you know, the situation that Nat discussed before, where you have conversation. What did you see? What did you see? And when in doubt, we're not going to disqualify. We've talked at various times this year about the swinging gate. Okay, here was an example, and this crew handled this really well. You'll notice the deep wing at the top of the screen was over in position as if it was a 2-point attempt. Then the side judge comes in to be the double umpire. They shifted over to the traditional PAT formation, and we moved over. We had plenty of time to get into position, which is, I know, a concern, and people have mentioned that. Will I have time to get to my position? Here's Exhibit A as proof that we do. Okay, next clip, Gregor, is 78. Now, remember our base responsibilities. Umpire and back judge, after the kickers pass your face, you're going to come in somewhere near the hash mark. The two deep wings are going to wait for team A to cross your face, and then are going to judge how far down the field, if at all, that they're going to progress down the field. It may be, if it's a mid-range kick, that they're not even going to move off of their restraining line, as is the case here. All right. It's better for us to be too far away than up too far, because the angles become hard for us to see the engagements. Now, in this particular case, we're going to end up with a UNR UNS situation in the middle of the field. And we're going to have a question in terms of whether the player, it's right there about the 30-yard line. That last blow is what we need to have eyes on. Now, if that's an open hand, and he slaps the guy's headgear, that's not a punch. That is just simply a UNR or a UNS, depending on the timing. Now, if that's a fist, that is a punch, and we're going to treat it as such. That's a very, very important distinction. If you're not sure, make it an open hand. Once again, if we're talking about potentially disqualifying or ejecting for a punch, let's make sure that it really is a punch. And I can't tell you whether that's an open hand or a closed hand. But the point is, we got to have eyes on this. We can't be looking at the football. There would be no reason whatsoever for the back judge or the umpire to be looking at this runner out of bounds when we've got opponents that are, you know, on the ground with each other. Now, the way this play develops, both the deep wing at the top of the screen and also either the umpire or the back judge should direct their attention back towards the third of the field that's at the bottom of the screen. You've got nothing else to look at. So we should have eyes at the activity that occurs at about the throwdown that we get, the reverse takedown, perhaps at about the 30. We should have eyes on the players that are at the 30-yard line, whether that was a punch or a slap. So remember what our responsibilities are, because if we don't take care of our business, maybe we miss this action right here at the 30. That's going to be a problem for us. Okay. All right. Let's go to 98. You know, we've shown some big hits tonight, And some of them have been fouls. Here's going to be a tough legal hit that's going to occur right in the middle of the field. You know, that is just a form tackle. It's a high tackle. And if anything, the kid that executed the tackle is the one that took the brunt of the blow. But in terms of, you know, his head is up, doesn't lead with the crown. The contact with the receiver is at the shoulders and or below. Head is to the side. It's just a big hit. That's football. That's why we put equipment on these players. And that's why it's dangerous, quite frankly. So anyway, just wanted to point that out. All right, 129. Here's another time scoring situation that we have to be aware of. Deflected by Team B. Who becomes eligible when Team B touches the ball? I won't ask anyone to open up the mic. I'll just tell you the answer. When B touches, everyone is eligible on both teams to catch and advance. And that's exactly what happens here. This is a lineman's dream. So legal play. Right now, this is going to be a potential OPI, but what we want to focus on is the contact that is initiated by the defensive back. Right there at the hash mark, okay? Now, if you watch this again, watch the defensive back come up and take this receiver on. Now, this is a bigger man, and he just basically knocks him over. Is there a little arm there, action there? Yeah, probably a little, but this is initiated by the defensive back. We're going to leave that alone. All right, the very next play, same wide receiver on the other side of the field. All right, bring it back. Watch 88 here at the bottom of the screen, the widest receiver. All right, now the defensive back initiates contact, but what does 88 do? He pushes off. That's a second act. That would be a completely different matter. Now it's immaterial because the quarterback gets flushed and he's going to run the ball. So we're not going to have OPI action here. But from a deep wing or a back judge point of view, that's something that we've got to see. And maybe this is a talk to this kid. Now, the other thing to keep in mind is, let's say that he does throw the ball, but the ball is thrown to the other side of the field. So in that situation, by philosophy, we're going to make that a talk to, because it had nothing to do with what happened on that given play. The pass went clear to the other side of the field. But the important teaching point is that we saw it. And at the end of the play, it's probably a good idea for us to say, hey, you're really lucky that that pass wasn't thrown to you or that side of the field, because that's offensive pass interference. Or even on the previous, or on this real situation where the quarterback runs, be worthy for someone to say, it's a good thing the quarterback ran, because that would have been OPI on you. So we talk to the kid, we make the kid aware that we saw what happened. That may well prevent a foul later on. Okay, a punt now. What we don't want to do, deeps, is we don't want to assume that this kick returner is going to field the ball cleanly, or he's even going to touch the ball. You can see that we move up really much too quickly, definitely by the deep wings. Back judge stays back. Good job. Back judge does not rush the stage. He knows that his deep wings will have the forward progress spot where the fair catch was completed. So he stays back, does his job, keeps the big picture in mind. but the deep wing at the bottom of the screen moved up much too quickly. So never assume the catch. All right, let's transition now to Wall Lake Central and South Line. All right, let's look at clip 6. Can you run that back to the beginning, please? Okay, this is once again a free kick situation. We're in perfect position. Direction of the kick and the depth of the kick is going to determine what our deep wings do. Our umpire and our back judge are going to get into the hash mark, or should be. And in this particular case, they don't move. You can see the umpire at the top of the screen. We don't see the back judge in the picture. They stayed on the sideline. We've got to get into the middle of the field. This is the equivalent for the umpire working a scrimmage play from the middle of the field and the back judge working a play from the middle of the field. So we need to make sure that we get in there. All right, let's drop down to number 40. Now, this is going to be a model huddle, but it's going to be on a field goal attempt. So now we've got another component that we need to put into our thinking. We typically think of model huddle or swinging gate as being a PAT situation. All right. Frankly, I hadn't thought of it either, but now that we have it on the books, we need to talk about this as crews to make sure that we're prepared in the event that we get a swinging gate in a field goal situation. The same principles hold true as if it is a PAT. When we don't have a kicker and holder in position, in other words, a T in the game, a holder down on a knee, a kicker in place, this is to be considered a scrimmage play. So we would have our deep wings on the goal line or the back pylon, depending on where the snap is. The umpire would have the business in the middle. Remember, even if there's a muddle to one side or the other, you may shade that direction, umpires, but you still have primary responsibility for the snap and the snapper. Now, if they shift from the muddle into a traditional field goal position, as we saw earlier tonight, we have time to get into our field goal, our scrimmage kick positions to officiate the play. All right, let's go down to 47, please. This is also a trend that I've seen lately with our deeps. We're cruising into our retreat position rather than really sprinting to get back so that we're ahead of plays. Here, and by the way, these guys did a nice job in this game. Happens to be one play in a game where there's an opportunity for us to learn and for them to do better. You can see that while, first of all, he starts at 20, which is too short. At a minimum, he should be at 22, and I'd prefer 24. But we wait too long, and when we start our retreat, we don't make a full commitment to getting back there and getting depth. Now, you're going to have to make decisions on the run, even when you perform the mechanics correctly. It's just inevitable that that's going to happen. You're not going to be able to get to the mesh point and get stationary every time. But here, these players are almost parallel with him, and he's making decisions on contact. If he had been back at the goal line or close to the goal line at the mesh point when this contact was occurring, he'd be able to see through it. The other teaching point here is the back judge does not have a flag. Now that means one of two things. Either he didn't think it was a foul, or secondly, he just didn't get to it on time. In this particular situation, I got to believe that he got over there in time to have an opinion. So back judges in this situation, when you don't have a flag, this is an automatic conference between you and the deep wing. And they come together and they talk about it. What did you have? This is what I saw. And back judges, if you're confident that there's not enough there for a foul, man up or adult up if we have a lady at the back judge position, and just say, you're not going to be happy with this. Let's pick this up, and have the referee announcers no foul, move on, and then put the ball back in play, because the coaches and the spectators will get back into the game quicker if we do that. This is going to be a potential late hit out of bounds, and it's going to go to the top of the screen. Now, what we want to focus on is the runner and where he is in relation to the sideline, and where the contact is initiated by the defensive player. You stop it right there, you can see that this guy has 2 feet out of bounds. 2 feet out of bounds, and he is hit at that particular point with no effort whatsoever by this defender to pull up. This would be a correct call for a UNR, late hit out of bounds. Now we get over there and we clean it up, but what we really needed was a flag down for a foul. The other thing that I would mention is that our cushion is, he's assuming this runner is going to go out of bounds. If he cuts back in and is able to get up the field, there is no way in God's green earth that this guy is going to get back to his pylon. We've got to give ground. It will help us not only in terms of our cushion, but it'll also give us a perspective in terms of where the runner is and where the contact occurs, whether it's at the sideline or out of bounds. This was a missed opportunity, and one that we should have nailed for a UNR. All right, Gregor, we've gone a little long tonight. We've gone longer than we typically do, but we had some really excellent presentations by 2 people that were involved in games and important situations that we all have to deal with and learn from. So it was worth our time to put both Chuck and Nat into the catbird seat here. Once again, I want to extend the invitation to anyone on the call to present 1 or more clips. And you can do that simply by contacting me and letting me know that you're interested. Give me a chance to see the clips that you are planning to present. That helps me in terms of other clips that I'm going to bring to the table, so that we don't overcook a particular issue. All right, so heading into week 6, when this week is over, we're 2/3 of the way through the season. So it's going quickly, but once again, it's time for us to put our best effort forward individually and as crews. And whether you're working a game between 2 teams that have not won a game, or whether you've got that undefeated game that everybody wants, we got to bring it every week. And we got to help each other not only get ready, but stay ready and stay alert during games. And if we do that, we're going to do well as crews, and we're going to do right by the game. And we're going to keep the game safe and fair for all concerned. So with that, good luck this week. Enjoy it. And